What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and I'm on my Cam Newton, baby. You know, when it come down to it, I gotta look as fly as Cam Newton do on 4th and 1. And if you don't understand, then you don't understand. At the end of the day, I'm trying to get on Cam Newton level. You know what I'm saying? Ballin' on a budget. But yet and still, I want to start this show off because this is the comment show. So I'm going to be going through the comments of my last video, which got a lot of views. And I can do nothing more than appreciate all of y'all for helping me do that. Because you know why? I feel like $100 million bucks, baby. That's how I'm feeling right now. But to start the show off, the first thing I want to do is congratulate the captain. Congratulate Terry McLaurin on his engagement to his beautiful young fiance. I have to admit, baby, you doing the right thing. In a season where everything seems to be going wrong, going down, and everything seems to be happening, I have to admit, I have to congratulate you on doing something so good in this upcoming season, man. Like I said, I just appreciate when I see young love out there. And when it comes to you, brother, I just have to appreciate everything you do. No matter how you do it nice, you do it right, and you do it always good. And the captain, I have to appreciate you, man. Much respect to you and your future queen, and I just can't say enough. Congratulations, captain. Congratulations. But let's get down into the comments. Time to start off with the first comment on the board. Awesomeness Sports. I have to say this, Awesomeness. I appreciate you commenting, but at the same time, I do like your videos. I have to admit, you seem very, very passionate. And I mean, it's one of those things where when I see your passion, baby, it just gives me a sparkle and a shine and glimmer to my eyes, baby. I just can't get enough of your videos. And I have to admit, your passion shines through like no other. And that's what I got to say about you, Awesomeness. Very much appreciated. You sat up here and said, awesome video. Thank you. I really, really thank you. Next is my man Sauce 2123. It's so crazy how I'm actually enjoying the season because this is the first rebuild we're actually going to do things the right way. Get a quarterback. First in the draft, build from there. I want Jaden Daniels. Pause. Oh yeah, brother. I'm glad you said pause because I wasn't certain if I was gonna have to start calling you Sweet Sauce. But yet and still, I have to admit, brother, I like Jaden Daniels too. You know, Jaden Daniels, I mean, athletically, this guy has some skills that we haven't seen here since Robert Griffin III. And you're talking about a guy who can throw the ball, who understands route concepts and things like that. He does a great job when it comes to throwing the ball. Pause. But yet and still, at the end of the day, you're talking about we can't go no wrong way. Other than if we probably draft some of these other quarterbacks. But at the same time, these guys in this draft, they're very good quarterbacks. And Jaden Daniels is on the top of the list. He might actually come to us. But again, we got to see what other teams do because I'm going to tell you something. With this quarterbacking group, man, it's going to be something like I think that we will see more teams jockeying to get up in the draft to snag some of these guys. I hate to say this, but I have to say it. Don't be surprised if we see quarterbacks go 7 deep. That's what she said. In the first 10 picks of the draft. I do feel that there's going to be a run on quarterbacks in this draft because everybody's going to want to get one of these special dudes. Because again, you're talking about in certain drafts, you don't see this many special guys. But again, if your offense isn't for any of these guys, don't draft them if you want instant success. If you want instant success, you have to draft a guy that fits what you're doing offensively. For us, we're not certain what offense is coming. If you're talking about if it's Ben Johnson's offense, Jaden Daniels may not be the right pick for that offense. So, I mean, yeah, you can love his athleticism and things like that, but you see that for him, he might need a Sam Howell type of quarterback. You know, he might need a Drake May. You know, he might need a Michael Penix. You know, so you got to understand that for us, I like Jaden Daniels too, but if we don't have the right offensive scheme, man, Jaden Daniels may not work out. Next is my man YT Renly, another day one guy. I was scared we were going to win for a second. Yo, bro, you ain't by yourself, baby. I thought we was going to win that game too. And when it came down to it and I saw that kicker sit up there and kick that field goal and hit it, man, that was the happiest day of my life, baby. And I ain't going to fake with you, baby. When it come down to it, losing sometimes is winning. Next comment is from Bowie Banks. Bowie Banks is another guy that's been a long time commenter, but he's always been one to let me know that back in 2012, I sat up here and said to everybody that this was Ron Rivera's retirement plan. And yo, this man lets me know that each and every time he gets a chance. And I just appreciate the comment. It's the LeBron James effect with Sam Howell. Yep, that's it right there. When LeBron plays great, LeBron gets all the praise, accolades, and when LeBron plays bad, trade the whole team, fire the coach. Team is some shit. Just like with Sam Howell, when Sam plays great, the media gives Sam all the praise, but when Sam Howell plays bad, the O-line ain't good, wide receivers aren't getting open. Laugh out loud, Terry washed up, EB bad play calling, lack of run game, excuses, etc. This game showed the world that this team gave up on Sam Howell a long time ago, especially when Jacoby got in the game. Laugh out loud. Now the O-line blocking and Terry getting open. Laughing like shiz. Let me tell you how this goes. When it comes down to it, it's no doubt about it. Sam Howell got a lot of praise for winning games that in reality should never gotten praise for. When you think about the Philadelphia Eagles games, we didn't know Philadelphia's secondary was going to be that level of not good. And understand, even with Sam Howell having the Eagle killer in Terry McLaurin on the team, he still didn't sit up there and get the ball to Terry McLaurin. And that was the crazier part about it. You know, so you sitting up in here and, you know, the conversation is about Terry McLaurin not being elite. I did a video about that, about keep the captain's name out your mouth. But again, you're not going to sit up there and have Sam Howell be looked at as a franchise quarterback when that's not the case. You know, he was getting a lot of praise for wins and successful games and stuff like that. Not to say he wasn't playing well. He was playing well in those games, but he did get more accolades and more praise than he should have gotten when it came down to it. So again, yeah, I agree. You know, when it come down to it, it is the LeBron James effect. The difference is that Sam Howell ain't a LeBron James. Like, Sam Howell is not one of those guys that changes the NFL. He's not one of those guys that's going to be the epitome of what the NFL needs and wants. Sam Howell is what he is, and that's just it. Next is from my man, Certified Yam Inspector. This is the very first person who's ever commented on the video, and I appreciate you, brother. Sam is saying, we needed to see who he was. Can't be mad at a guy for being himself, but we had to know. I agree, though. Last time we had this opportunity to draft, we blew it. That can't happen again. I think you're talking about 2020. I'm assume you're talking about 2020. Here's the problem with 2020. 2020 has a lot of revisionist history that goes along with it. A lot of people tend to forget that Dwayne Haskins was here. Dwayne Haskins was looking very good and was looking like he was going to develop very well under Kevin O'Connell. The problem is that arrogant Ron showed up and felt the need to not bring on Kevin O'Connell as the offensive coordinator to actually have success with Dwayne Haskins. Instead, what he did was he brought Scott Turner in, and prior to everyone finding out that Scott Turner was a trash play caller and that Taylor Heineke was winning in spite of Scott's play calling, all of a sudden it was like, Dwayne Haskins wasn't good enough and stuff like that. So that is a little bit of revisionist history. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. But again, Justin Herbert, would you really want Justin Herbert now? I mean, when you really think about how Justin Herbert has been playing, his trajectory has gone from very high to very low now. I mean, he hasn't been the special quarterback that he was in his rookie year. And you're talking about he's going to have another offensive coordinator possibly. Because, again, how's he going to really be something special? Tua came into the league injured. So in reality, Burrow was the only guy that was really available for us to take, but he went number 1 overall. So again, like I said, I understand this is an opportunity we can't bypass. We have to take one of these young boys, because again, if we don't, we're going to be in a situation where next year we can easily sit around, win some games, and end up not picking nowhere near as high as we're picking right now. Sometimes you gotta take the chance of saying, let's get the quarterback now and we'll draft his lineman or future lineman later on. And I understand that may sound crazy, but sometimes it's not as crazy as you think when you're thinking about the long-term future of your team. Next is So Ninja X. You've been commenting a lot, So Ninja X, but I appreciate you, brother. I really do. I feel like you only talk about Sam, not the coaching, not really the defense, but it's cool. So, I've talked about the coaching that's been here for the longest. I've always talked about how Ron is just a terrible coach. He's always been that, in my opinion, when it's come here. When everybody else was talking about, Ron's plan and we trust in Ron, when everybody was talking all that, I was the one who was saying, nah, I don't trust this guy. He brought the losing culture from Carolina to Washington. He brought all the coaches, any player he could find that was part of that losing, and brought them to Washington. So again, I've said all I've said about Ron Rivera. Now, when it comes to the defense was playing poorly, right? The problem is that I said this again. This is a part of coaching. I told everybody Jack Del Rio was running an outdated system. It was the old Tony Dungy Minnesota Vikings defense that he himself manned when he was in Minnesota. So that was the defense he understood and knew. The problem is that it didn't put the pass rushers in a very good space. And this defense focused on interior pressure more than the outside edge guys having more pressure. And what we saw, all the stuff that they were talking about, it was because Montez Sweat and Chase Young were starting to do their own thing. Because why? They were going to be free agents. So they had to do their own thing. And sure enough, if you look at it, you're talking about Montez Sweat now has double-digit sacks. We already knew that we want to get that. And Chase Young, yeah, he's not the sack king there. But guess what? Once he get acclimated to that style of defense, he's going to be something special. Depending on where he goes, because he might not stay in San Francisco. He might stay in San Francisco. We don't know. But again, you're talking about you combine that with him learning the system and then playing in that system and them utilizing him as a pass rusher. We're going to see a different Chase. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing else I can say about the coaching. I told y'all I didn't think it was EB that was the problem when it came to Sam. And we saw in 2 straight games that it wasn't EB's play calling. And I think that some people tend to forget that when it comes to these players and these coaches do ask the players, what plays do you like better? And a lot of times, understand, The reason Sam is looking bad, understand, get mad at Sam because these are the plays that he told Eric Bieniemy he was comfortable with. And understand, he's still leaving the pocket when there's no pressure in his face. I said this early in the season, and I'll keep saying it. He is one of the only quarterbacks I've ever seen who runs into sacks. I've never seen a guy run into as many sacks as Sam does. And to be honest, that's just what it is, man. I don't know what to say, but that's what it is when it comes to him. Next is Ray Kidd 3TB553. Sam is not him. I pray we get Caleb Williams. To get Caleb Williams, he's going to go number 1 overall. And the Bears are going to field every possible. If the Bears aren't planning on taking him, they're going to field every call possible. Now, I will say this. Here's where it gets kind of wild. If we find a way to get it, understand we have to be at number 1 to get Caleb Williams, because understand we're not the only team looking at Caleb Williams. I mean, you're talking about New England will be looking at Caleb Williams. The Giants will be looking at Caleb Williams. There are some other teams that more than likely will be. Hell, don't be surprised if New Orleans would want to move up and get Caleb Williams. Atlanta may want to move up and get Caleb Williams. So again, you're talking about we're not the only team that is going to be on Chicago's phone wanting that number 1 overall pick and that opportunity to get Caleb Williams. So if we don't get the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams may not be in our range. But again, with the fact that they now have selected Jacoby Brissett as the starting quarterback for this upcoming 49ers game, which is a game that he could mess around and win, Caleb Williams may not even be in our front view, because we can't win any games if we're going to move close to number 1 or even be closer to number 1. But yeah, like I said, I like Caleb Williams too, but we have to be at number 1 to get him. Next is Lamont TBG 7200. Bo Nix could be good. We'll see if he's another Mariota or not. I am open to whoever that we pick, as long as as a general manager picks them. Hal has got to put his big boy pants on. I said this before and I'll say it again. I think that all great quarterbacks need that push. They need a guy who could take the job from them. I said this thing about Kirk Cousins before. When Kirk was here and Robert Griffin III was here, Kirk was a more motivated quarterback. He was motivated to be great. When Robert was gone and Kirk no longer had the threat of anybody taking his job, he became a very middling quarterback. That also goes for Derek Carr, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones. A lot of these guys, if they're not being pushed by a guy who can actually take their job, they just end up being middling guys. And for me, when it comes to Sam Howell, he was given the job. He didn't have to work for the job. He wasn't benched early enough to show that he could lose the job. Remember, back at Buffalo, I was the one who sat up there and said he should have been benched that game. They should have sat him on the sidelines and let him watch Jacoby Brissett work. Here we are now, later in the season. Now you want to do it. What's the point? What's the point? Now you want him to learn? I said this in the Buffalo game, and I remember when everybody lost their mind about when I said that. I said y'all should have benched him in Buffalo. He should have been benched in Buffalo so he could see how the offense truly runs, and then get him ready for the Giants game. That's exactly what I said, and everybody pretty much lost their mind with that whole thing. Now here we are at the end of the season. Now we want Sam Howell to learn the offense from the sidelines. Waste of time, man. But Bo Nix, I like Bo Nix. The problem with Bo Nix is that I think he's a product of the offense that he's in. And if he doesn't go to an offense that's similar to what he's comfortable with and in, and this goes for any quarterback. If you take a guy and you put him in, if you take like Jaden Daniels, right? If you take Jaden Daniels and you put him in an offense that is not suitable for his skill, the same thing applies to Bo Nix. If you don't put them in offenses that are suitable for them, they probably won't be the best players on the team. Prime example, if Bo Nix goes to San Francisco, he might do well there. He might do well in San Francisco. He might do well in Miami. He might do well in Miami. But again, those teams, he kind of fit that scheme. So that is something that people have to pay attention to. Mariota was overdrafted, in my opinion. I tell people that all the time. Mariota went back when he was drafted. I felt he was overdrafted because he was not as good as Jameis Winston in that draft, and he shouldn't have went, because I think he went, number 2 overall that year to the Titans. So I think that Mariota wasn't that good in the draft, but him becoming a Mariota, I'm not really certain. Again, it's all based on the offense he plays in. Next is High There 470. When the opposing team blitzes, Sam cannot complete a pass. It is really important that we do not win another game. Hey, I've been on the don't win another game bandwagon for the longest, and I'm going to stay on that bandwagon. We cannot win another game. We need to lose out so we can either be number 2 or number 3. There is no more of this trying to win games. Even though Ron has announced that Jacoby Brissett will be the starting quarterback against the 49ers, I am concerned because at the end of the day, I think Jacoby Brissett can win this game, and I'm concerned about that. You know, we can't win another game. You should have kept Sam in it. You should have kept Sam in, because don't change it up when it's like, oh, this is the year of Sam, and now all of a sudden you want to sit him on the sideline and now he's benched. Yeah, we can't win another game. We cannot win another game at all, because if we win one of these games, we fall very far in the draft. We go from number 3 right now to number 8. That is a fall that we cannot do. So again, we'll see how it goes, but we can't fall that far. We cannot win another game. Next is my man Impervious 99. I will finally concede that Sam is unlikely to be the answer, but I don't think any rookie quarterback would look capable with the current makeup of the roster. I still stand on the idea Sam is an upgrade from Heineke, just very inexperienced. Due to the position ownership, future front office, and coaching landscape, it may be best to get a new quarterback anyway. We don't need any more incoming staff inheriting quarterbacks they don't want. Now, contractually, it'd be okay with keeping Howe and still drafting a quarterback. That way, if he gets better, fine franchise quarterback. If not, top backup and run with new franchise quarterback. Impervious. All roads lead back to Mr. Wonderful. I know you're new, but that's how it is. All roads lead back to Mr. Wonderful, baby. That's how it is, baby. But even with that, is he an upgrade over Heineke? Arm strength wise, yes. Intelligent wise, no. But I will say this as well. The difference between supporting Taylor Heineke and the support that Sam Howell was getting is that for a lot of us, we all understood that Taylor Heineke was not going to be the future franchise quarterback. We understood that. I understood that he was just the best quarterback on the team at the time. So I never screamed out him being the future quarterback or anything like that. I said he was going to be the bridge guy. And a lot of people was on this Sam Howell being the best quarterback and being a franchise guy when in actuality he wasn't. So again, I can understand that. I'm glad you understand that all roads lead back to Mr. Wonderful. But again, like I said, I'm with you. Sam still has time on his contract. I mean, our next coaching staff isn't going to be as stupid as Ron Rivera, where you basically release a guy still on his rookie contract. So it is what it is. But like I said again, Sam Howell still be here. You still got 2 more years on his contract. You'll be fine. So yeah, I'm with you, Impervious. Yeah, it's understood that you draft a young guy, especially when you're drafting this high. You don't, like, Washington through the years has never really been able to draft high like this often. So when you get the opportunity to draft high like this and you don't have the quarterback on your team, you got to take a quarterback. You got to. Next is MPR 76. I guess that's CH8RN. I don't know what that means, but it means something. Bring back Jacoby, even if he's just a backup. His experience speaks volumes. It depends on the coaching staff that's coming in. Not only that, if Jacoby impresses in these next 2 games, he may be looking for a starting job. He may not be looking to be a backup to nobody. And understand that there's going to be teams that's going to give him that true opportunity to start. I mean, there's places he can go and back up a better young quarterback. Like he could go to Indianapolis and really show Anthony Richardson how to play quarterback. He could do that. Or he can go somewhere like the Raiders, or he can go somewhere where he can possibly be a starter, even though it's going to be late. I mean, he could do the Geno Smith thing, where he'll be a guy that comes in and all of a sudden he's revitalized his career because he was better than a lot of people thought he was going to be, and he's now a better quarterback. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, Geno isn't showing it this year, but he's still been playing very well. So, in my opinion, it's hard to say that Jacoby Brissett would take another backup job when, in fact, it could be a situation where he plays well enough to sit up there and want a starting job. So, that's a tough one. Now, yeah, I agree. If you can bring Jacoby Brissett back, that'll be great. But I don't know if he plays well in these next 2 games. It's going to be hard to convince him to come back as a backup and not search for a starting position. Starting job. Next is Joe Hewitt. Sam run from Ghost. Yeah. I mean, that started in the Buffalo game. I was the first person to point that out. He sees something out there and most of the time all it is linemen putting their hands up and he will run. There's a lot of times where he and not only that, he has no pocket awareness. He doesn't step up in the pocket. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I've never seen a quarterback run into sacks as much as Sam Howell does. He runs into sacks often. And at some point, it's like, bro, like, what are you really doing out there? What are you really doing to sit up there and put yourself in a better situation? And it's Sam seeing ghosts. That's exactly what it is. I mean, like I said, I picked it up and I said something about it in the Buffalo game. He was seeing ghosts. He needed to be benched. He needed to see what was going on in the system. That's when they should have benched Sam. That's when they should have benched him. That's when what they're trying to do now, they should have did that in the Buffalo game. They should have, and I said this, they should have waited until the Giants game, got him back in on the Giants game, and then worked with him. But again, we seen how Sam Howell looked against some of these low-level defenses. Understand, next year is not going to get any easier for us when it comes to defense. So, again, you're talking about a guy just not being as good as you want him to be. But guess what? If you would have benched him in the Buffalo game, he might have actually had a real opportunity to see something, to be better, and then possibly play a little better in these most recent games. But again, what can you do when a guy's throwing picks, getting sacked, and things like that? And the theme of the season is Sam Howell's development. Ron hitched his job to the wrong horse. Next is Demi Logger 7641. Just curious, what did you think about RG3? You're the first person to ask me this. The RG3 discussion is what actually starts this show, and I'm going to tell you the story about this. So 2012 rolls around. Everybody's talking RG3. I'm at work and I tell people, nah, RG3 isn't the guy. Nah, we shouldn't go with RG3. There are better quarterbacks in the draft and things like that. I never call in the radio shows. I think I called in the radio shows 3 times. And each time I've been right when I've called in. But I called into the radio show. At the time, it was 106.7 The Fan, and it was Chad Dukes and LeVar Arrington. I called in and I said, hey, they were talking, everybody was talking about move up, get Robert Griffin III, move up, get Robert Griffin III. We should get Robert Griffin III. I called in and I said, no, we shouldn't go get Robert Griffin III. We should stay pat. We should draft Russell Wilson in the first round, and then we should draft Kirk Cousins in the second round. I said that. The first, and I gave them the example of, did they see the Wisconsin versus Michigan State game? We saw 2 quarterbacks put it all on the line to try their best to win a game. Both of these guys are really good. Not only that, because Mike Shanahan saw them both. I said more than likely Mike Shanahan is going to see both of them. No, I said Mike Shanahan already saw both of them in the Senior Bowl. Mike Shanahan coached Kirk Cousins and he played against Russell Wilson. I said these 2 guys are the best quarterbacks that you can pick. So what they should do is stay pat, take Russell Wilson in the first round, and take Kirk Cousins in the second round. I got off the phone and they talked about how stupid that was. Why would you take Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson is good, but he's not big enough. Then they said Kirk Cousins, isn't he the guy from Michigan? Yeah, he's a good quarterback, but why would any team take one quarterback in the first round and then take a quarterback in the second round? Well, at the time, we didn't have any quarterbacks. Rex Grossman was a free agent. John Beck was a free agent. So the best thing to do is to take the 2 quarterbacks. Here's what's funny about that very thing now. From that 2012 draft, there's only 3 quarterbacks from that draft that were still starters to this day, and only 2 that are undeniable starters that never have gotten benched in favor of have never had guys drafted to take their job. And those 2 guys, the 3 quarterbacks are Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and Ryan Tannehill. The 2 guys are Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. So here we are now, 11 years after that, and those are the 2 guys that are still considered top level quarterbacks in this league. Imagine if we had Russell Wilson as our guy. A lot of people also forget this little tidbit as well. Do you know that when the 2012 season, that not only did Robert Griffin make the playoffs, Andrew Luck made the playoffs, Russell Wilson as a rookie also made the playoffs and beat us in the playoffs in the first round. The very next year, Russell Wilson marches Seattle into the Super Bowl and they win. Then he comes back and marches them back into the Super Bowl. But again, and probably would have won a second one if it wasn't for his coach calling a passing play instead of a running play. But again, when it comes to Robert Griffin III, he was a guy that I really didn't like coming out of college. I said that he couldn't read defenses, and people thought I was crazy. And next thing you know, out comes the fact that he doesn't know a route tree. Well, guess what? If you can't read defenses, you definitely ain't going to know nothing about a route tree. So again, that was one of the things that I did not want Robert Griffin III. I wanted Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. First round, Russell Wilson. Second round, Kirk Cousins. So that's the story on how this show gets started and what my thoughts of was with Robert Griffin III. Next is Brandon Newsom. Agree with every word. This is spot on. Fans let emotions take over instead of logic. We have to bring in the best available player with the first pick. I agree. You do have to bring in the best available player, but we don't get to pick this high that often. And contrary to what people want you to believe, there were some quarterbacks who were overdrafted going very high in the draft. Marcus Mariota is one. I tell people that all the time. Another one was Mitchell Trubisky. He was another one who was overdrafted. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, were both overdrafted because I felt that Baker, was it Baker? I think, I can't remember. I don't know if it was Baker, but I think it was Baker. But I felt that Baker wasn't a complete quarterback coming out of college. And Sam Darnold, in his years at USC, every year he got worse as he was still in college. He went from being a stellar freshman to one of the SAG quarterbacks in college when he was in USC. So neither one of them should have went very high. There are a lot of quarterbacks that went high. Blaine Gabbert, he was one that was overdrafted. There's so many times where quarterbacks have been overdrafted, but that's a failure on a team's personnel staff than it is on the player, because at some point you know that a guy is not good enough to be a quarterback, and the draft one so high, that's crazy. So yeah, the best available player could be Marvin Harrison Jr. Say we are at the 5th pick because say we're at the 8th pick or the 7th pick because we won the 2 games. Now you're talking about the best player on the board could be it could be an offensive lineman, which isn't that bad, but okay. It could be a quarterback. It could be an edge guy. So understand, it could be a cornerback. Like, I don't know if he's in this draft, but I'm gonna find out if he is. Jabbar Muhammad, the corner out of Washington, is amazing. Absolutely amazing. He could be the guy on the board. And I'm gonna tell you this: if we miss out on Caleb, May is okay, Daniels or Penix, then yeah, I wouldn't mind taking Jabbar Muhammad in the first round at cornerback if he's in this draft. I think he is, because everybody's talking about him like he's going to be in this upcoming draft. But if he is, I would rather take him because he's an amazing lockdown corner. So again, that's just how I think, But hopefully we're able to be high enough to get one of these quarterbacks. We got to get a quarterback. Next is Lawrence Bryan 9873. Mock draft has the Commanders taking O lineman, not a quarterback, which I think is wrong. We need a quarterback. Like, we do need a quarterback. Now, I'll say this: don't reach for a guy. Like, again, my 4 guys to me is Caleb, Penix, May, and Daniels. If those 4 guys are gone, then I understand not reaching for a quarterback. I get it. But again, those 4 guys have to be off the board for me to not feel that way. So, offensive lineman, I don't mind it. But again, those 4 guys have to be off the board. Again, I have to find out if he's in the draft. Jabbar Muhammad. If Jabbar Muhammad is off the board as well, to me, he's the best corner in college football. I love this guy is a shutdown guy. He is so flexible when it comes to systems. So again, if he's not in the draft and if he's in the draft and he's taken early, then I could say, okay, let's go for the offensive lineman. But again, you're talking about which one is going to be there. You got Fashanu, who's the best pass blocker, and then you got Alt, who's the best run blocker. So you got that situation to deal with too. And here's another thing. Just because you take an offensive lineman doesn't mean he's going to be good either. Like, there's so many people talking about, oh, we got to take an offensive lineman. Just because you take an offensive lineman doesn't mean he's going to be good his first year. We've seen multiple times where offensive linemen have been taken in the first round, and some of them haven't been good their first years. A good example of that, like, I like DeJuan Jones. DeJuan Jones was a guy that I wanted Washington to draft. DeJuan Jones went from right guard to right tackle to left tackle all in one season. It's rare to find a guy who can do that much movement and still impress. Now, don't get me wrong. On the left side, he's been struggling a little bit. But again, you're talking about offensive linemen. Sometimes they're not all good coming out. Andrew Thomas. How many of y'all remember Andrew Thomas? Andrew Thomas wasn't good his first year. Evan Neal, he's not good his first year. So, I mean, these type of things can happen. Just because you draft an offensive lineman doesn't mean he's going to be good his first year. So, for the people who question these quarterbacks and say, hey, the quarterback may not be good his first year, offensive lineman may not be good his first year either. So, again, it depends on some systems, but you can have that issue just as much as with a quarterback as you can with an offensive lineman. Next is my man, my little brother, the one, my young, the guy I like the most, my friend, Tone, Pro Tech Sport. Sam was asked, time to move on from bro. Yeah, I mean, again, this is why. And Tone has been one of the ones. He was the new high order guy. He was in HO and all that type of stuff. You know, he was one of the guys that was on Sam and felt that Sam was going to be a franchise guy. I kept telling people, like, don't say that this guy is going to be the franchise guy. Wait to see what he's going to become. And very early on, Sam started to show that there were cracks in the armor. As the season went on, we were seeing that. Because every time people talk about the games he played well in, they bring up the 2 Eagles games, which again was a situation where we're talking about we did not know that the secondary wasn't going to be as solid as it's been in the past. Not only that, they bring up the Seattle game. They basically was throwing. He was basically throwing it short the whole game. So it was like, you know, you really didn't see him really attack anything. So again, that's one of those situations where was Sam as yes, he was. But again, this is why you don't call a guy your franchise quarterback earlier than you should. So again, my man from Pro Tech Sports, love my man Tone, my little brother, love him a lot. Yeah, but he was one of the Sam supporters, and he's now come around to actually understanding that, yeah, we might have to take a quarterback in the first round because Sam wasn't good enough. Next is my man Cedric Moore. Cedric, I'm glad to see that you're back and you're commenting, man. You know I was worried about you, man, because you was one of those people that was a Sam Howell lover. And I when I didn't see your comment last week, I was like, I don't know. I hope said is all right. But let's see what said. Said he got a bunch of laughing emojis. He said, I'm here, big bro. I'm sure we're going to disagree on how we got here. One thing's for sure, Sam is broken. He has completely lost his confidence, and I'm afraid he's lost the locker room. You have to get a quarterback, and if Sam is what I think he is, he has to get back in the lab. Love the show and watching you grow this thing. May not always agree, but always love. Because I know we both want to win. And you know what, said? Again, you've been a day one guy. And me and you know, when it come down to it, you know for a fact. Ain't nothing but love between us. Ain't nothing but love between us, baby. You know what I'm saying? You are my bro. And like I said, you're somebody who's been around for the longest. That's why when I didn't see your comment, I was like worried about you, man. I was worried about you. But Sam isn't broken. The problem is that we're seeing Sam for what he really is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're talking about when you talk about a guy being broken, that's with the impression of like a guy that was broken was Dwayne Haskins. You know what I'm saying? That the way he acted out, that's a guy that was broken. Dwayne Haskins came into the league for a head coach who did not want him. That was number one. And two, was on the hot seat and didn't have time to develop him. And that Jay Gruden admitted that. He admitted he did not want Dwayne Haskins, and he had no time for developing Dwayne Haskins. Jay Gruden admitted that. So, and that was a part of him getting fired. Then you sit up there, and Dwayne Haskins comes in his second year, and the coach, he sat up there and told people, hey, yo, this offense is kind of wacky. I need time to even work in this thing. And instead of giving Dwayne the opportunity to grow in this offense, Ron Rivera did what he did. Benched him in 4 games and then basically trashed him the whole season and then released him while he was still on his rookie deal. That was a guy that was broken because why? We saw Dwayne Haskins lead the field and basically turned his back on his whole team. And that was what happened. That's a guy who was broken because he couldn't understand why he was in a league where both of his coaches basically did not want to even deal with him. So that was a guy that's broken. Sam Howell is not broken. Sam Howell is doing exactly what he did in college. And that's the thing that most people tend to forget. He went in the 5th round, and understand this. If Ron and them thought he was a first round pick, they would have picked him earlier than the 5th round. But everything Sam is currently doing is what he was doing at North Carolina. He held on to the ball too long. He would leave the pocket too fast. In fact, his final season, there was a lot of that. If you remember, Phil Longo, who's his offensive coordinator, said a West Coast offense would be good for him. Well, guess what? This is a West Coast offense. Not only that, this is probably other than Kyle Shanahan's system, this is the most quarterback-friendly offense in the entire league. And like I said, for him to sit up there and still play the way that he does, he was given the job. He didn't work for the job, and what was going on was that he did not feel the pressure of somebody actually taking the job from him. So I don't think Sam Howell is broken. I just think what happened is that we saw Sam Howell be Sam Howell. Too many people thought he was saying that he was going to be the franchise quarterback, and in fact, he should never have been put in that situation, and he should have been competing for the job, period. And that's all that's to it. But said, I'm glad you're back, man. I was worried about you, man. You know, hey, you one of my day ones, man. When I don't see a comment from you, I'm worried, man. I'm worried. But glad to see that you're back. Next is do the damn thing 21. We have such a poor coaching staff, no players will succeed until they are gone. I've been preaching that since 2020. I told people when Ron first got here, he said that he took the job because of the roster, and then immediately flipped the roster. He did not sit up there and reach out to Trent Williams. He sat up there and had an issue with Morgan Moses, had the audacity to stand in front of a locker room and telling them that they were a team that went 3-13, so they should be listening to him, when one of those 3 wins that they got was against him. And on top of that, he was fired after losing the game against them. So it's like, you're not going to sit up there and have anybody believe or trust what you got to say when we beat you and you lost your job because we beat you. So who are you to bring your butt in here and talk that trash? No, Ron has not been a great coach. He hasn't been a great coach. He was too busy. Like, again, he took the losing culture from Carolina and brought it to Washington. And that's all he did. I told everybody from the onset. People thought I was crazy. I said Jack Del Rio runs an outdated defense. And I even told people where the defense came from. It's Tony Dungy's former Minnesota defense before he moved to the Tampa 2. The Tampa 2 involves more of the edge guys being the pass rushers and getting to the football, and the defensive tackles that they can rush the ball, but being more run stuffers. Well, guess what? In that former offense, the pass rushers are the D tackles, and the edge guys are the run stuffers. So it didn't work for this NFL. It doesn't work for this NFL, especially when you're talking about offensive linemen are averaging 300 and something plus pounds, and they can double team and things like that, and you only got 2 guys there. So again, I said it all along, and remember, think about this as well. How many of y'all notice that every group that has been bad this year lost their coach? The defensive backs lost Chris Harris. The wide receivers lost Drew Terrell. The offensive line lost John Matsko. Think about that. Those are the 3 areas where they lost their coach from the year before. And each group has been under fire the whole season. Even to the point where people were talking about Terry McLaurin wasn't elite anymore. Only to find out that, again, not only is he elite, but he just needed a different quarterback throwing to him. And again, I've always talked about how bad this coaching staff was from the onset. Here's what's crazy. You fired Jack Del Rio, but you still, for some strange reason, Steve Russ has held his job, and he's had the worst unit on the entire team in the linebackers. Think about that. That goes to the extent of not even being aware of how bad your coaching is. So if you're not even aware of how bad your coaching is, you definitely aren't a good coach at all. Next is D Moore 2272. Everyone seems to forget about Dwayne Haskins being thrown under the bus. Ron has definitely sold us a bill of goods. You're going way back with the Charlie Ward reference. I'm not a Caleb Williams fan. I prefer Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix Jr. Plus, we haven't failed well with players from the area, at least at elite positions. Jonathan Allen has been good. D'Angelo Hall, he's been fairly good. Sean Springs, he's been fairly, like, we have had success stories of guys playing on this team that was from this area. The thing about it is that I think that a lot of what you're saying is recency bias because you're looking at Chase Young and Jared Patterson, you know, 2 guys who were recently here. So But when you really think about it, we've had some success stories when it comes to guys from this area who've done well. Like I said, Jonathan Allen is from this area. D'Angelo Hall was from this area. Sean Springs was from this area. So again, we've had guys who have been successful, who have been from this area and have been successful. But again, yeah, I mean, you know, the Dwayne Haskins, yeah, I mean, I always felt some type of way about the Dwayne Haskins move, because we all were calling for Ron to keep Kevin O'Connell on, because we saw the development Dwayne Haskins was having with Kevin O'Connell as his. Kevin O'Connell did the opposite of what Jay Gruden did. Jay Gruden basically said, I don't have time to develop a new quarterback. Kevin O'Connell wasn't even certain he was going to have a job, but he still felt the need to try his best to develop Dwayne, and we all saw Dwayne progress under Kevin O'Connell's tutelage. We saw that, which was why we was okay with Chase Young being the number 2 overall pick. So again, yeah, that's something. Charlie Ward, yeah, let me tell you something. I tell people all the time, I like I said, I still need somebody to interview Charlie Casserly and ask him why he did not take Charlie Ward. Why was Charlie Ward not on his board? Why did he feel the need to take Heath Schuler, who was a horrid passer in college? He wasn't that good passing the ball in college. So I need to understand why not Charlie Ward. Caleb Williams. I like Caleb Williams. I like Jaden Daniels. Like I said, again, 4 guys for me. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Michael Penix Jr. Me personally, I'm a Penix fan. His touch on the ball is insane. Like, and pause. But he just knows where to throw the football. He understands the velocity he needs to throw it. He knows, I mean, and his anticipation throws are insane. Absolutely insane. I mean, there are times where he throws the ball and his receivers are not even out of the route. And by the time they come out the route, the ball is right there. I mean, it is just amazing watching him throw the ball. So for me, I like Penix too. He's my favorite guy. But again, a lot of these guys are really good. Next is D. Moore again. I was never big on Sam, but it never made sense to me that in year 4 you want to develop a quarterback when you had year 1 or 2 to do that. Ron said in his first season here, it takes 3 to 4 years to turn around a franchise, but in the same year says he wants to win now and throws Haskins under the bus and to the Wolves. Not only that, exactly, absolutely. Like, why did it take 4 years for you to say, hey, let's develop a quarterback? I told y'all coming in that his group has never developed any quarterback. Cam Newton survived solely off of his talent, completely off of his talent. There were times where, in all honesty, Cam Newton was supposed to revolutionize the quarterbacking position. Cam Newton was one of the few guys who had not only the athletic ability, but he had the arm talent. And understand this, we have seen something similar to that in Michael Vick. But guess what? By the time Michael Vick started throwing the ball, he was in Philadelphia and he was pretty much done with playing in the NFL. So again, Cam was supposed to revolutionize the quarterbacking position, and it never happened because he never got the proper coaching to come in and develop him properly. He didn't get the opportunity to throw the ball 50, 60 times. But when he was throwing the ball that much, guess what? You saw a different Cam. But he never got the opportunity to develop even more of a pass, to develop even more as a passer, because again, Ron was an awful coach. And the same thing happens now. Yeah, you want to wait year 4 when you're basically out the door to now develop a guy? Get out of here. You had the opportunity to do that with Dwayne Haskins, and you chose not to. You chose not to hire Kevin O'Connell, and you chose to go with Scott Turner. You could have went with Scott Turner year 2. because Kevin O'Connell was going to be gone anyway. But instead, you went with Scott Turner and just basically destroyed the whole development of any quarterback. Because guess what? None of the quarterbacks developed. None of them. Next is the Hawk TV. As a Washington fan, I was always in a perpetual state of frustration followed by apathy. Bro, if you have been around since I've been around, like I said, 1994 was when I got on the quarterback carousel. But understand, before then, I was always a Washington fan. And I only knew winning until the 90s. You know, you're talking about, again, 1994 was the beginning of the downfall for this team. And I mean, you're talking about, we had a couple of good seasons. The best one being 1999. I think it was 1999 was our best season, where we actually had the opportunity of actually making it to the Super Bowl. But at that point, Dan kind of owned the team. And after that, 2000 rolled around and the team just went straight down after that. So, again, yeah, you're talking about during the Dan Snyder era, it has been nothing but pure frustration. Again, coin the fan base and the show name, Frustrated Fan Sports Show, it's the same thing. So I can understand, man. I definitely can understand. Next is King Musa. Let our fans tell it. If we had a new left tackle, wide receiver, and offensive coordinator, Sam would be a top 10 quarterback. But from what I have seen this season, a quote comes to mind: "All because you pour syrup on shit, don't make it pancakes." The people that believe that were all Sam Howell howlers, right? But they couldn't see past what was really going on. They purposely ignored what was really happening with Sam. You know, and they're now starting to come around. My man Tone from ProTech Sports is one of them. You know, they were ignoring the signs. You know, it's almost like being in that relationship and you just purposely ignore the red flags. Oh man, yeah, you know, she fine as all outdoors, but yeah, she's not that bright. Oh, she's fine as all outdoors, but yeah, you know, she spends a whole lot of money. She can't pay bills. She, you know, like sometimes you can't, sometimes you're so desperate for something. And understand this, you're talking about everybody's been on this quarterback carousel for years. You know, Robert Griffin was supposed to be the guy that got us out of that, and it never happened because his ego got in the way. So a lot of people are over the quarterback thing, and they ignored a lot of the red flags. So that's the problem that they had. They could not look past the red flags because they were so desperate for it to be over. Ooh, this is so fine. You know, ooh, she's so fine. Sam looked good against Philadelphia. Sam looked good against Seattle. But are you also seeing him leave the pocket too early? Are you also seeing him sit up here and hold on to the ball? Do you also see that he leads the league in pick sixes? Do you also see that he leads the league in balls batted at the line? Those are things that they wanted to ignore because they were desperate for the quarterback thing to be over. So again, like I said, though I gave them some reprieve from that because they just didn't want to see the red flag. They didn't want to pay attention to the red flags. And that's pretty much it. Next is Grace Saku. Y'all had a chance to make a play for Lamar. Just saying, a lot of fans are looking silly right now. Falcons, Panthers, and now Washington. We were going through the sale of a team. And to be quite honest, Dan wasn't going to spend no money. He wasn't going to spend a single dollar. And because he wasn't going to spend a single dollar, by the time that the team was sold, free agency and all that was pretty much over with. We was all the way into training camp at that point. So there was no way for us to really be able to get Lamar without giving up a whole lot to get Lamar. And we just didn't have the money for it. Like I said, Dan was not going to spend any money. He was focused on selling the team, and he was focused on getting the most for the team. So, do we look stupid for not getting Lamar? Yes, we do. But at the same time, would Lamar look the way that he does right now in our current system? I mean, yes, you're talking about Lamar can throw the ball, but do you think that Lamar would have been any better in Eric Bieniemy's offense where he's throwing more than he's running? You know, again, sometimes you might have the offense that fits the quarterback a little bit better than you could even imagine. So, again, some things make sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people are mad about Lamar, but at the same time, we never had a real chance to get Lamar. So, I can't be too mad about that. Next is Brittany D. How can a running back showcase what they have to offer when EB refuses to run the ball ever? So I'll break this down about that offense. That offense, the Andy Reid offense, in all its versions of it, it's always been a quarterback offense. It's never been a running back focused offense. It's always been quarterback focused. Even when you think about the history of all of them, you think about the only version of that Andy Reid system that runs the ball more is Frank Wright's system. And that's why Frank Wright got fired in Carolina, because he felt the need to run the ball more and didn't think about how to get Bryce Young into the best positions to throw the ball better. So, again, it's not that Eric Bieniemy doesn't want to run the ball. The problem was that Sam wasn't playing that well to assist with them being able to run the ball. And when he was running the ball, there'd be times where defenses started to lock in on the run. You know, the problem is that he also didn't really understand how good Brian Robinson was. Brian Robinson is a guy that could take the grinding. You know, and he didn't understand that Brian Robinson could do that. But again, to me, I still felt that Brian Robinson was having a good year, because guess what? Sam Howell was checking down to him all the time. So Brian Robinson was actually having a very good season, especially when it came to catching the ball out the backfield. Brian Robinson was looking really good until he got injured. So again, same thing with Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson was looking better in this offense because the running backs were getting the ball, because Sam Howell wasn't throwing the ball deep. He was throwing it to the running backs and the tight ends. So, I mean, even when you think about Curtis Samuel, a lot of times when Sam Howell found him was through some type of wheel route or some type of drag across the field, where he was just throwing the ball to the short intermediate route. So again, I think that the running backs were looking pretty solid in this offense, especially when it came to the passing part of it, because Sam Howell was doing it. But again, like I said, this offense that Eric Bieniemy runs, the Andy Reid system, other than Frank Wright's version, it's never been a running back focused offense. It's always been a quarterback focused offense. Next is Jason Rodgers. That's the thing. We always play good enough to be in the middle of the pack with 3 first-round draft picks. I like Sam, but I would feel fine with a new quarterback, but not the USC one. Seems very self-centered and dramatic. I'm good on him. Now, I'm starting to hear things about him off the field, but again, this is one of these situations where you can't take light a guy who is phenomenal when it comes to the ability to throw the ball and the ability to get out the pocket. You know, you can't take that lightly. And not only that, you can't always have these cookie cutter good guys on your team all the time. Cookie cutter good guys don't always get you the wins. When you think about you think about a guy like Ray Lewis, right? He wasn't a cookie cutter guy. Sean Taylor was not a cookie cutter guy. Ed Reed, not a cookie cutter guy. Deion Sanders, not a cookie cutter guy. Even when you think about Reggie White for years, everybody knew, but everybody knew he was this God-fearing guy. But guess what? When he was on the field, he was relentless. So sometimes you need guys that sometimes they might seem a little off, or they might seem a little self-centered, because most of those guys, most of the time, they don't want to lose. They hate losing. They'll let you know that they hate losing, and they'll tell you they hate losing. So at the end of the day, I can understand feeling like it might be some of the RG3 overload, right? You know, RG3 was this prima donna guy who came in and basically ruined his own career, and at the same time took the franchise down with him. You know, and that's the part that nobody ever talks about, and how Robert Griffin III brought us up, ruined his own career, and ruined us as a franchise in the process, and he never takes responsibility for it. All he ever does is he had the nerve to interview Sam Howell. All he ever does is do interviews, talk, and all that type of stuff, but he's never truly apologized for how he basically single-handedly brought this franchise down due to his ego and arrogance. And we're seeing ego and arrogance bring the franchise down again in Ron Rivera. I feel, this is from Michael Hinton. I feel all true fans don't want to win anymore. I want Sam to get one more year with a different staff, draft a left tackle, and solidify this O-line, and we'll go from there. Again, I think that, say we gave Sam Howell another year under a different offense. That'll be his third offense. That'll be 4 offenses. So he would have left college. In fact, it probably would have been 5, because he left college. He had the Phil Longo offense at first, and then I can't think of the guy who took over for Phil Longo, because I think Phil Longo left. But anyway, this will be his third offense, third year in the league. Let me tell you something. When that's the statistic for most quarterbacks, they're never successful. Sometimes they struggle in learning their second offense. But now you're talking about the possibility of learning a third offense. Not sure if the terminology is going to be the same, because if you don't bring in another Andy Reid disciple, like let's just say the guy Brian Johnson out of from Philadelphia, he's running a very watered down version of the Andy Reid system, but I'm pretty sure the terminology is kind of identical. But again, if you sit up there and you bring in a third offense, that means he would have learned the North Turner system, the Andy Reid system, and now what other new system that he's going to be in if they don't bring in an Andy Reid disciple to Washington. So again, most guys who sit up there and they end up in offenses like that, they never do well later on in their careers, because look at somebody like Jason Campbell. Jason Campbell, 4 straight years, had 4 different offenses. And he had 3 straight years. 4 years, 3 different offenses. But because he came into the league, he learned Joe Gibbs' offense, then he had to learn Al Saunders' offense, then he had to learn Jim Zorn's offense, then he had to learn Mike Shanahan's offense, and that's what got him cut, trying to learn Mike Shanahan's offense. So again, you're talking about a guy who couldn't get over the hump because the terminology kept changing on him. So again, like I said, you could feel that way about Sam Howell, but say he's not any better after that. Now you're talking about having a guy on your team and you sitting up there, and again, you're now in a situation where this guy is again not the guy that you want. So like I said, again, I mean, I understand your belief in Sam Howell, and I can appreciate you wanting to stick with him. But to me, he's not the guy. And we got to go after a quarterback this year, especially when you're talking about a good example is a comment earlier. Let's not have the new OC inherit a quarterback. Let him pick his own quarterback. And if Sam Howell is good enough to compete with his hand-picked guy, then we go from there. But again, make Sam Howell play for it. Make him play for the job. Make him be better for the job. Next is Michael Hinton again. I never seen Haskins look half as good as Sam. That's not true. Haskins was at... There are a lot of things that Haskins was better than when it comes to Sam Howell. The only place that Haskins failed when it came to that was maturity. Dwayne Haskins didn't have the maturity, but at the same time, we also didn't understand what was mentally happening with him as well. He was a guy that was truly broken, because again, he came into the league under a coach who did not want to develop him. Then when he finally gets the development, he starts to look better. And instead of Ron Rivera keeping with that development, Ron Rivera felt the need to bring in Scott Turner. And Scott Turner went into it like quarterbacks should acclimate to my system, not me acclimating to you. And Dwayne Haskins had to deal with that. He was benched after 4 games. Dwayne Haskins threw a better ball. Dwayne Haskins was taller. Dwayne Haskins had a faster release. Now, I will say this, Dwayne Haskins wasn't as good when it came to being on the run and throwing with accuracy, but there were more qualities Dwayne Haskins had that was better than Sam. And even looking at it now, if you would have had Dwayne Haskins get a true opportunity, like if Kevin O'Connell was actually hired, we're not talking about Sam Howell right now. We're talking about Dwayne Haskins. So again, it is what it is, but Dwayne Haskins Dwayne Haskins had a lot more skills, and he was a better quarterback than Sam Howell. Michael Hinton again. Bring Jacoby back and start him. He'll be cheap and competitive and build around him. I don't trust a quarterback drafted in the top 5. Look at Trevor Lawrence. Was he worth it? Jacoby Brissett cannot be your future. Period. You need to bring a young guy in. There have also been success stories at the top of the draft. Joe Burrow is one. Josh Allen, I think, went 4th. There have been a lot of success stories. Carson Palmer was really good in his time. Carson Palmer was really good. Matt Stafford, Matt Ryan. You had a lot of guys that was picked very early on. Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. You have examples of guys who've been successful being picked in the top 5. Trevor Lawrence, I told people from the offset, Trevor Lawrence was going to struggle his first year because the Urban Meyer system didn't work for pocket passes. It just doesn't. That's why I said that if they were going to draft a quarterback, they should have drafted Justin Fields. And Urban Meyer probably would have kept his job. But again, I knew Trevor Lawrence wasn't going to be that good going to that offense. Now, I will say this. With him now being in a Andy Reid system, he's looked a whole hell of a lot better. Now, understand this. The reason he's struggling is because they saw top level teams this year. They were the number 1 seed in that AFC South, and they saw a lot of top level teams this year. So not only that, there was nobody thought that Houston was going to be better than it was this year. Indianapolis also was looking very good early on, and it's still kind of marching through. So a lot of teams in the AFC was better than what people expected. And with Trevor Lawrence seeing a first place schedule this year, that's why you saw a lot of his struggles. But again, I don't think that he's going to be a failure in the league. I think that he's going to be a fairly steady guy. But he's also one of those guys that might need somebody to come in behind him and make him fear him losing his job, because I mean, he needs to feel some of that heat as well. He's been one that's been anointed a quarterback person, and he hasn't looked well. Another person that's going to need that fire lit up under him is Josh Allen. He's throwing way too many picks. He's making way too many mistakes. Look at somebody like Dak Prescott this year. Dak Prescott got, I think Cooper Rush is still there. And Dallas also brought in Trey Lance. So that lit a fire under Dak, where Dak was playing very well. Yeah, they weren't beating teams with winning records, but he was beating the teams that needed to be beat. And he was looking good doing it. So again, like I said, that's one of those things you have to think about. You can't build around Jacoby Brissett at all. You need to bring a young guy in and let the young guy and Sam battle for the quarterbacking job. Last but not least is another one of my day ones, and one of my favorite day ones. And me and this guy, we've been on the same wavelength this whole season. And that's my man, Merle Locklear. Too many fans jumped on the numbers instead of the actual game film. I have really noticed throughout the season that his pocket awareness is not where it should be. He is not seeing the field. Draft a quarterback in the first round and draft best player available from that point on. Merle, like I said, me and you, lockstep, man. We've been on the same path this whole time, and I said the same thing earlier about his pocket awareness. Yeah, a lot of teams jump, like, and I'll get the analogy again. A lot of people was just over the quarterback carousel, and they were ignoring Sam's red flags. There was so many times Sam would do stuff, and it's like, man, he's just not seeing it. He's just not seeing it. He's getting out of the pocket way too fast. He's running into sacks. Like, we've never seen a quarterback run into as many sacks as Sam has been running into, and he was just running into sacks. He was leaving the pocket when it wasn't necessary to leave the pocket. There were times where all he had to do was step up in the pocket, and he could have made a play. He was also checking the ball down a lot. He was checking the ball down a whole lot. So again, like I said, I just think that what happened was that most of these fans, they just got they were over the quarterback carousel. And in the process of that, they really sat up there and struggled a whole lot with accepting that Sam Howell had these red flags, paying attention to his red flags, and admitting he had the red flags. Instead, what they did was they focused on the fact of him just being the quarterback and wanting to be off the quarterback carousel, but not understanding that at the end of the day, he just was not the guy. But that's it, y'all. That's it for all the comments. Whew. That was a lot of comments, y'all. That was a whole lot of comments. So y'all tell me what y'all think. I mean, how do y'all now feel about the how do y'all feel about taking a quarterback in the first round? How do y'all feel about them sitting up there starting Jacoby Brissett this next week? Not only that, tell me, and also I want all of y'all to congratulate Terry McLaurin on his engagement, man. I mean, the guy, I mean, he's been having not the best season, but for him to, you know, find some solace and some happiness in a season that his numbers were going to be down, you gotta praise a guy who's willing to take that step and understand that, you know, he's found himself a special woman, and she's found herself a special guy. So again, like I said, congratulate Terry McLaurin on his engagement, and y'all tell me what y'all think. Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.